Thank you. Dr. Christensen was complaining to me in there a few minutes ago in the back about how bad it was he had to follow General Ramirez's talk. And so here I find myself today in the same situation I was yesterday, having to speak to y'all immediately after you'd come off a heavy lunch and now after you've come off a break. But you've got me for just a few minutes. And I want you to know, all of you, that it's been my honor to travel around the state and meet so many of you. And I'm getting to meet many of you here over these 2 days. But I want to thank you so much for welcoming me and my family into the TxDOT family. And that's truly who we are. And General Ramirez talked about the importance of family. We're family. I'm not embarrassed to say that. That's what we are. That's what made the organization so great over almost 100 years. And we may work in different offices and have different responsibilities, different job titles. We may even work on opposite sides of this great big state. But we're family with a long tradition and history of selfless service to our state. When a snowstorm hits in Amarillo or Dallas or Fort Worth, other districts don't look the other way. They pack up and they go help. And when a hurricane threatens our coastal areas, district boundaries don't exist anymore. We all pitch in to clear roads and restore some sense of normalcy to the region. It's that spirit of family and pulling together that I called on a few months ago when we rolled out a plan to stem the damage to roads in our energy production areas. Crashes and fatalities in those regions of our state are increasing at an alarming rate. We have to bring every available resource to the table to minimize hazards for the drivers there. And that's why last month we deployed some 100 employees from Lubbock, Childress, Fort Worth, Tyler, Brownwood, and Houston to help their colleagues in San Angelo. With some help from the procurement, fleet ops, support services, occupational safety, and maintenance divisions, these employees worked side by side for 3 weeks to widen and repair roads in the area. And it was a success. Nearly 30 miles of roads were repaired during that short period. The program worked so well that we're mobilizing crews to help in Laredo and San Antonio over the next few weeks to help them out of a tough situation, because that's what TxDOT does. Help each other out of tough situations. It's that spirit of working together that has impressed me about this agency from the very first day that I came here. When I got this job almost 6 months ago, I knew I had a lot to learn about what this department does and what is being asked to do. A few months into the job, and I still don't know everything about transportation, but I do know that Texans are expecting a lot from us. And I know that this job has become a lot more challenging in just the 6 months that I've been here. I already talked about the work we're doing in the energy areas to repair roads that are getting torn up faster than we can address them. We're spending more money and putting it in more hours to maintain the system that we have. We need $5 billion more a year to keep congestion in our metro areas from getting any worse, to keep up with maintenance, and to rearmor roads that are being eaten away by heavy energy traffic. With all that said, that's a problem and it's a challenge, but it's not a bad one to have. I'll tell you, today there's over 1,800 drilling rigs drilling in this country. Almost 50% of them are in this great state, almost 50% of those in the Permian Basin themselves. We are well on our way to becoming energy independent. Texas is a part of that, and TxDOT is a big part of that energy independence as well. What we're facing. In the next 40 years, our population, we're told, could double, with most of that growth centered in our metro and our urban areas. Vehicle miles traveled on our state-maintained system are expected to increase to 800 million total miles by the year 2040. That's up more than 60% from today. Over the next 25 years, freight traffic could grow at twice the rate of passenger vehicular traffic. With the expansion of the Panama Canal, larger container ships that have nearly triple the current capacity will be able to navigate that canal. These larger vessels mean that shippers in Texas can export our state's energy, chemical, agriculture products to more places worldwide. And when exports increase, so will the amount of goods shipped through the ports on the Gulf Coast and along the Gulf Coast Gulf Intercoastal Waterway. The vast array of airports and rail throughout our state will also have to accommodate these massive economic growth. By most measures, our job of moving people and products is only going to get bigger and more complicated and more complex in the future. But that future, while it's close, isn't quite here, and until it is, we have to continue our recent progress we've made across this agency. You've made across this agency. What have you accomplished? We've reorganized our administrative team to better manage the state's growing responsibilities. John Barton has now taken on the responsibilities of Deputy Executive Director full-time. He's added Mark Myrick as Director of our Engineering Operations, Bill Hale as Director of Metro District Operations, and Randy Hopman as Director of Urban and Rural District Operations. Their job is to be leaders, not just managers or supervisors. They'll provide leadership to our districts and to our divisions, and that in turn is going to help administration do a better job of serving you. Rich McMonigle has come on board as the Chief of Staff of TxDOT, directly overseeing our Human Resources Division in the Government Affairs Office. And Darren Anderson is our Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer. In that role, he is in charge of outlining and directing the department's strategies, preparing TxDOT for the near and the far future. This past May, the Texas Legislative Council released its finding from our most recent customer satisfaction survey. And the results confirm something we already know: our employees give top-notch customer service. The TLC looked at 19 customer groups, including aviation, bridge, travel information centers. Within these groups, they evaluated us on 7 areas of customer service, including the professionalism of our staff, our customer complaint process, and our websites. The result? Overall, TxDOT scored a 92% satisfaction rating, while our travel information centers took the top score of 99%. Last month, the Reason Foundation released its analysis of each state's highway performance and cost effectiveness. Texas came out number 11 on that report, and what makes our rating so noteworthy is that we outshone every other large state in the country, coming out ahead of Florida's 31st ranking, way above New York's 43rd place, and California was 45th. Our 11th place showing is certainly good on its own, but when you consider that Texas has the largest state system in the country, I think that says a lot about the good work you do every day to keep our roads and our bridges in top condition. Well done. By most accounts, 2014 has been a very good year for us. TxDOT took national honors at the America's Transportation Awards competition. We came in first in the Quality of Life Community Development Award for both the small and large project categories, one for the Fort Worth 7th Street Bridge Project, the other for Segment E of the Grand Parkway in Houston. And just a few days ago, we went live with the first phase of our new Enterprise Research Plan project. It replaces a patchwork of more than 20 outdated systems with one integrated software suite. And in a word, simplifies our human resources, finance, payroll, and supply chains. And yes, it will simplify it. Just give it a chance. We've achieved record low numbers for injuries, lost time injuries, and vehicle incidents. And a great deal of that is because employees are taking our Mission Zero mandate to heart. They are actively engaged in reaching the goal of 0 incidents, 0 injuries, and 0 deaths. Yes, it's an ambitious goal, but safety must be paramount, and it must be inherent in everything we do. We cannot meet the mission of providing Texans with safe and reliable transportation system if our employees are not safe on the job. Along the border, we're working with the cities and the respective districts to decrease wait times there. Drivers routinely have to wait several hours to cross the border. One way we're helping to break that logjam is by making real-time traffic updates available to travelers crossing the two countries. Using the same Bluetooth technology that we have in Waco, on I-35, and at the Port Aransas Ferry, drivers traveling into and out of our great state of Texas and Mexico can find out how long border wait times are and modify their travel plans accordingly. The future. To be a best-in-class agency, TxDOT must take full advantage of 21st century technology, as Dr. Christensen alluded to. We have to make sure that Texas is positioned to handle a future that will look much different than today. And I want TxDOT to be in the lead, rather just reacting to technological advances as they come. We know that the future will be driven, no pun intended there, by technology. And technology that's already being developed, connected vehicles that communicate with each other, and the infrastructure beneath them, autonomous vehicles, or as the experts refer to call it, road vehicle automation. Just a few weeks ago, GM announced that it'll launch a new Cadillac in 2017, as Dennis alluded to, with advanced cruise control that will allow for hands-free driving on the highway. Mercedes-Benz is testing something it calls the Future Truck 2025. It is a self-driving truck that is capable of getting up to speeds of 50 miles per hour on the freeway, all without driver assistance. The cab has been outfitted with a removable tablet for the driver to catch up on work, surf the net, or anything else he or she needs to do. And the driver's seat can rotate 45 degrees so the operator can stretch out a bit if he or she gets tired from watching the car do all the driving. This past summer, the company tested the self-driving truck, and for all indications, it performed as expected. Now, I don't expect that we'll see these trucks anytime in the near future. Gosh, I hope not on I-35. But given how much truck traffic there is on I-35, like I say, I'm willing to wait. But it's coming. It's coming. While some of our future is going to be high-tech, we can't forget about the human element of preparing for that future. And part of administration's focus for the remainder of this year will be on improving our safety record for our employees, providing better training, succession planning, and specifically that means developing and preparing our next wave of department leaders. In the end, we owe our best service to our employees. We depend on each other to accomplish the mission. Without you, there is no mission. Each person, each job is critical to that mandate to provide Texas with a first-rate transportation system. It will not be easy, and it's never been easy. There will be times when we will have to sail against the wind. We'll have to break new ground, but we'll do it. And we'll do it together as those before us have done it and as a TxDOT family. Let me leave you by telling a story of my own. Back in 1914, an English explorer named Sir Ernest Shackleton was determined to be the first man to cross the Antarctic on foot. But first he would need a crew. And the story goes that Shackleton put an advertisement in the paper looking for the sturdiest of men to apply. It read, quote, "Men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success." About 5,000 men signed up. On August 8th of that year, he and the 27 men he had selected set sail from England in a ship he christened the Endurance, named after his family motto, "By endurance we conquer." The journey started out well. Calm seas, kind winds, About 3 months in, the ship stopped at a whaling port off the South Georgia Islands for provisions. And while his men took in the island, Shackleton spent time with the whalers, learning about the infamous and ice-ridden Weddell Sea, the very sea the Endurance would have to cross to reach the Antarctic. He would soon find out that that sea would live up to its reputation. Back on board the Endurance, and in its 6 weeks into the expedition, the Weddell Sea has turned icy, and its waves into floating blocks of ice. At first, Shackleton pushed the ship, cutting through the soft, snowy floes, but not before long, the ice began to harden, and the icebergs formed into solid ice, hemming the ship in on all sides. And the Endurance was stuck in a solid mass of ice. The crew was hopelessly alone. No radio transmission, no way to reach anybody. As it turns out, there were only about 100 miles. That ship was only about 100 miles, one day sail away from their landing point. But with the ship encased in ice, they had no other chance but to wait for it to thaw. For 9 months, they did nothing but wait, sometimes in total darkness as the Antarctic day felt and looked more like night. The temperatures sometimes dropping to 30 degrees below zero. Many times, the only sound was the ship's hull buckling under the pressure from the ice all around it. Shackleton had to make a decision. The ship wouldn't last for long, and it would eventually break apart under the pressure. He gave the order to abandon ship. The crew climbed down the sides of the ship onto the ice floe, carrying what they could pack, supplies, lifeboats, anything. For months, the crew lived on the ice, hunting seal, trying to keep morale up, and insanity at bay. The ice floe they were on continued to drift, headed in the direction of the nearest known land, Elephant Island, about 346 miles away. When the ice finally broke up, the crew got into their lifeboats and sailed until they reached land, only to find out that it was barren. No food, no shelter, no wood for fire. The only way they had to survive is for a few of them to travel another 800 miles away to South Georgia Island, back where the expedition began. Shackleton chose 5 of his hardiest men. They set sail on a small boat crudely fashioned from scavenged parts and left 23 of their crewmen behind. 17 days later, Shackleton and his men reached the shore of South Georgia Island. But the problem was they landed on the wrong side. The whaling port was on the other side of a 4,000-foot mountain range. So Shackleton left 3 of his crew behind, and he and 2 others set off to tackle the mountain. For 3 days they walked without food. When they finally reached the whaling port, the islanders took them in, dressed their wounds, and Shackleton set out to rescue the 2 men he'd left on the west side of the island and the 22 men he'd left some 800 miles away. It took him 4 months and 4 separate attempts, but he got back to Elephant Island where he'd left the rest of his crew. And when he arrived on August the 30th, 1916, 2 years after the expedition started and nearly 5 months after leaving them alone there, he found every single man alive. All 28 men in Shackleton's expedition survived because they counted on each other. Brute strength meant nothing in that environment. Titles carried little weight. The only thing that mattered was their determination to win together. And like Shackleton and his crew, who were bound together around a common goal, so are we here at TxDOT. We're working on something very special. We're working to prepare Texas for a first-class future, a future that will not have drivers bogged down in congestion, a future that will mean safer roads, better protections for the men and women who build them, a future that generations of Texas will be glad that we built. You have proven that the employees of this agency have the character and are of the caliber to do it, and we will. You will. I'm honored to be part of your family, and I look forward to what we will accomplish together. May God bless each and every one of you and your families. We are also fortunate to be able to serve the great state of Texas, the greatest state and the greatest nation on earth. Thank you very much.